Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing my second Q&A answer segment type of video leading up to the next episode of The Walking Dead Season 5, which is, of course, Episode 11, which is called The Distance. Alright, good stuff. So, spoiler warning as always if you guys aren't caught up on The Walking Dead. In today's Q&A, the first question, as I mentioned yesterday, in yesterday's Q&A, if you guys missed it, by the way, yesterday we talked about the possibility of Abraham being infected due to that small cut he received from Sasha's recklessness when they were killing the zombies or trying to get rid of the zombies that were tracking them or, walking after them in them. So yeah, in this one, the main question we're going to start with, I'll read it off to you first from Griffin Campbell, who had sent it through to me first, and he said, "Hey Trev, I have a video topic question for you. I hope you'll actually answer this one in time. So what if in the Walking Dead TV series the writers twist the Alexandria story arc? What if Aaron is actually bad?" And he says, what if the folks at Alexandria are bad news? What if Negan is actually a good guy? Okay, so he gets into some other stuff. But I want to focus on the first part of the question because I think he had a good thought here. So let's not worry about Alexandria right now or Negan or anything else like that. But what about Aaron in particular? Because we've seen Aaron, who's arrived at the end of them, episode 10, and we know he's going to be a huge concentration in The Distance, which will be the episode coming up this Sunday. So what do we think about him in terms of, is it possible they could remix him in the TV series, and instead of him being a good character like the one from the Walking Dead comic book series, what if he's actually a bad guy? Because we don't know for sure, just because he was in the comic book series, that he is the same version of that character. You've had a character like Gabriel who is, right, who's exactly the same. But is it possible we could have a character that comes in that's the opposite? So instead of Aaron being, a good guy as we think he is, he's actually a bad guy. And what do I think about it? So first off, with the promo, they seem to be pretty concerned, especially Rick, with the flare gun and the other things that he has, and they tend to not believe him. They think he's full of it. Now, that's comic book accurate. That's similar to how Rick handled it in the comic books. They tie him up and everything. So he didn't trust him right away in the Walking Dead comic book series either. But is it possible in the TV series, instead of them going that way, they could actually go the other way? All right, well, I would say most likely they're probably sticking with the same thing. Like, most likely he's not full of it. He's not full of BS. He's the same character. That's the most likely set of circumstances. And also, because in the promo, Rick and the others seem to be very worried, and there seems to be some things happening, some things going on, I tend to think that because they show that, it kind of means the opposite, meaning that he is actually trustworthy and that he... you don't really have to worry too much about it because they're making it seem the other way, as if to twist from others. However, I do think it's a good idea that they could do things like this, and I think they probably should once in a while throw in a curveball for us. So rather than it being just like the comic book series, so that we kind of know which character is going to go where, what kind of character is what, have certain characters be remixes and different versions so that we kind of get confused sometimes. And I think that's probably best. Because otherwise, you run the risk of having people, telling their friends, telling people what's going to happen next, and they're going to know. They're going to know. Like, we all know, who Aaron is from the comic book series, and those who don't probably seen the video on the channel of me just telling you who he is basically. So it kind of takes a little bit away from it in terms of us being surprised when something actually does happen. That said, if they did go that route and they had him be kind of a remix or a different version where he actually is a bad guy and he actually is luring them into a trap, I think that would be kind of cool. But they don't have much in the way of resources on them. So unless this group is just meaning to get whatever, scavenge whatever supplies they actually do have, which we could see something like that of a group just, supplies in general, food, water, everything being so scarce that a group would try to get it from them. But I don't see a group like that giving them water to begin with, as we saw in them, right? So I think it makes more sense that he's probably the same Aaron from the comic book series. I don't see any remixes here. If you're a good guy, I don't think you'd really give people water, or if you're a bad guy, I don't think you'd be giving people water to try to gain their trust or anything like that. You'd probably just be doing the Terminus type situation to lure them into a trap with some kind of false hope or false promise or something. But that said, he could be part of this Wolves group. He could be part of the Scavengers. We'll have to wait and see. I would just say probably not. Most likely not. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Write your ideas, what you think. Which one do you think it makes more sense? But I don't think it makes sense that he would be luring them into a trap since he was giving them water. He was doing things like this. And I don't think they're going to remix the original comic book version. So just to sum it up, I don't think they'll do it, but if they did, I would actually like it. I like some curveballs every once in a while. I don't like to be able to kind of know everything that's going to happen and still have them be satisfying and interesting and, make for a good story and everything if they can do it. Next one's from Zero Regen, and he says, "Hey, Trev, I just wanted to ask, how excited are you for Morgan's return?" And he puts in brackets, "if it happens this season. I definitely think it improved the slower episodes with dialogue between him and some of the characters. Thanks." Yeah, man. I mean, they showed him in the premiere. They showed him in the mid-season finale, of course. So, yeah, I most likely will probably see him by the end of the season, I would think, as a result of that. That said, man, you're totally right here. I'm so excited to see the return of Morgan eventually. Probably finale. I'm predicting finale for the most part is probably when we'll see him. We're close to it. But you're right. I mean, they could do a whole... I would rather see an entire episode of just what's happened to Morgan all this time. Time skips, whatever you want to do, however you want to put it. Have the beginning open with a scene from the very first season. Maybe have another scene throwing back to Clear, and then show us what's happened to him afterwards. I think they could be really creative with that. They could kind of do the Frank Darabont approach, which is to show us some different things happening in the Walking Dead universe versus just focused on our core surviving group, and build a more expansive universe with different points of view from different perspectives. I think that's great. We got to see it a bit with the Governor in season 4. I'd like to see it with Morgan. I think there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of things they could do with the show. However, we have to consider, and some people were a little bit confused, I think, by my review on Sunday. And the reason why is because it's not that I hate slower episodes, and not that I hate dialogue or I hate, seeing things, seeing slower episodes like that. I don't have a problem with that. It's that we talk about the show so much and we start thinking about all the different possibilities of what they could do, right? And once we start thinking about all the different possibilities of things they could do, like showing a whole episode of Morgan and what's happened to him all this time, man, it gets me so excited. And then if they just kind of bring us a decent episode, because it was actually a good episode. It wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was probably in a good range, average to good, right? Which is them. It doesn't seem as good because we've been talking about all these different possibilities that they could do, and it makes what they actually did do seem like, oh, that's it. What they could have done this, they could have done that, they could have done this. Yeah, I know, but they're doing 16 episodes. It's not easy to do 16 episodes. Some of the episodes have huge scale. Some of the episodes are in Atlanta, and, it must have been a nightmare to film with how busy the city actually is and everything. And CG and all these different costs that come into play and all these different things. They have to build environments for the show. They have to do all this different stuff. It's understandable here and there we're gonna have slower episodes. But you're absolutely right. If they gave us a character like Morgan, I'm 100%, even if it's just a whole episode of him just kind of catching up with the others and stuff like that, as we have a few little things added in there in terms of the plot, but mostly just dialogue between him and Rick and the others. Like Clear, for example, I would love it. But it's got to be good dialogue, though. It can't just be like, yeah, I'm depressed, yeah, she's angry. We already know that. We know you're angry that your brother died and Bob died. It's not, or you're sad or whatever. It's okay to see it. It's to see it, but it's kind of like you don't need to because we already kind of know that's how this character would naturally feel anyway. So there's a lot of different possibilities for what they could do with the show, and I do think you're right. I think it would definitely improve it if we got to see some more points of view and some more great dialogue between certain characters. So definitely Morgan is one that I'm really, really, really excited for in the series, and he's probably, aside from Rick and Daryl, he's near the top for my favorite characters in the show. Rick, Daryl, and Morgan. Everybody else in the group, I'd say. Yeah, Morgan is, I like him more than almost anybody else because he's a survivor that's been by himself, and we've seen what he's capable of. We've seen what he's done. And yeah, he might be a bit messed up from it, but that just makes it even more fun, right? So I can't wait. Anyway, we'll move on from there because we got a couple other questions. So next one is from Omar Graves, and he says, "Hey Trev, did you have a feeling Maggie was going to attempt to commit suicide this episode?" Yes, I did, absolutely. Especially with the trunk scene, and I think that's what they were going for, because the zombie's tied up in the trunk, been kidnapped or whatever. And she opens it up and she kind of looks at it and then she closes it and then she wants to go back and then Glenn kind of steps in, right? To me, I was thinking to myself, like, she might attempt to commit suicide right then and there with the one in the trunk or something. I don't know. Let it bite her or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's what they were going for or what, or if it's just to show how sad she was. But and then talking about the zombie or the person that shot themselves in the barn, I think, wasn't it? Similar type of situation, but it seemed to me like by the end of the episode, she had figured out that it was worth it. So I don't think we're going to see her try to do that again, or think about it again. I'd be surprised if she kind of went back. That would feel like spinning your wheels, because you'd just be, okay, now she's okay now, we've had an episode, and then she's back again. And then, you don't want to flip-flop back and forth like that with regards to that. If she's figured it out and she's cool now, she's been depressed, we've seen that enough, I don't really want to see it again, to tell you the truth, because we got it in them. But we'll see what happens, but I don't think she's going to try again, and yes, that was my interpretation of it. Sasha just kind of being more angry at the world, but Maggie kind of internalizing it and becoming very sad by it. Next one's from IB Sweet P2, and he or she says, probably she, "Hey Trev, Q&A question. Have you noticed The Walking Dead's ratings have been dropping? Episodes 9 and 10 this season both got less views than episodes 9 and 10 last season. I don't think that's true for episode 9. I think it's just 10. Episode 9 did really well. It was over 15 million, I think, initial airing. Episode 9 only dropped by a little, but episode 10 dropped by over 1 million viewers compared to episode 10 from last season." Well, I think last time I checked, episode 9 was around 15, episode 10 was at around 12. Do you think they added too much filler and strayed too far away from the comic book series' central storyline to keep viewers engaged? So this is such a loaded question, right? So my opinion on this, I don't think it's a bad thing to stray away from the comic book series. I think with Terminus, what they did with Terminus versus just the Hunters was brilliant. I really think that was brilliant. I liked everything they did with Terminus, and that's all basically filler. The Hunters is like the Gareth group post-Terminus, really, right? And Martin's an add-in too. All these, at least I think he is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. At least in terms of how much he had in terms of the story and everything, right? So I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think they'll lose viewers when they stray from the comics. I think as long as they're bringing us story, scenes, environments, and character dynamics that are good or at the same quality as the comic book series original, story, then you wouldn't lose viewers because of it. I think you'll just gain them. That said, I do see the drop in episode 10 because of episode 9, because episode 9 was so sad and stuff. And it's good to have sad moments or have sad parts of the series. There's tons in The Walking Dead, and it usually, when you have a big death, it usually ramps things up. But sometimes when you just have a sad episode that's just sad, sometimes the following episode, people may be like, whatever, whatever, they're just, desensitized to it. I was a bit desensitized to the Tyrese death. When that happened, I was really surprised. I was like, what, really? And then they actually didn't save him and he actually did die. I was like, wow, really? But I don't know. I just kind of felt like to me, it felt fabricated. It didn't feel like, like a real death. Like it just, I don't know. It just felt, there's something weird about it. We've talked about it, so I won't go on about it. But, yeah, I don't think it's the filler. I think it's the story and what they're choosing to spend the episodes showing us. You don't want it to be repetitive. That's what you don't want. The last thing you want in The Walking Dead is for it to be repetitive. The comic book series, to me, doesn't feel repetitive almost any of the way through. The television series, I will admit, current time, the last episode, felt a little bit repetitive to some stuff we've seen before. The forest stuff and wandering around in this, that does feel a bit repetitive. And as a result, you might get some droppage. But that said, I'm sure a lot of those viewers will come back, they'll watch a rerun or whatever, they'll come back and watch another episode afterwards. So I don't think it's going to hurt the show or anything. And you have to have, if you're doing 16 episodes, you have to have some slower episodes in there. You're not going to be able to have every episode go big with awesome environments and 500 miles of showing us different things as they're making that trek, as they're making that journey, seeing them getting trapped on like a bridge, let's say, with a like a huge horde of walkers coming towards them, and them being like, oh snap, what are we going to do? And having some crazy thing where they have to go around them or run or something, and have like a huge army behind them of following them or something like. See, this is why I was a bit disappointed. Do you see how I start talking about this stuff, and maybe some of you didn't even consider that, but they could have done anything like that during this story, and they just kept it very micro. They kept it very small, very individualized, which is okay for character dev, but it would have been really cool in a premiere episode to see some grand macro stuff. At least I think so. It's not necessarily about action. It's more, I would say, spectacle, right? Not just action, but kind of spectacle of you kind of wish we could see some stuff like that sometimes, because the show is getting enough views to pay for it. And if you look at a show like Game of Thrones, they go for spectacle a lot. If you look at how they do it, they're filming. They've got 2 crews filming in different countries. Sometimes I think 3, depending. All over the world, they've got like Ireland, they've got one. I think they got one in Spain. They've got all these different spots where they're doing different stuff. They go for a lot of spectacle. And with the amount of views The Walking Dead gets, they could easily put a little bit more money into it and give us some of that. They just choose not to. We got the Terminus stuff, which was spectacle, which was awesome. Big explosions and stuff. And everybody went nuts, right? It worked. So I would just like to see a little bit more of that. But it seems AMC kind of wants to keep it a little bit. Sometimes they'll show us that, but they'll do it when it's not expected, and we can't expect it. We can't think that kind of stuff is going to keep going. But I think the viewers will come back. I don't think it's a filler thing. I think it's a quality thing and what's happening type of thing. What happened and what's going on, right? Next one's from Cam Stewart. I'll make this the last one for this Q&A, and he or she says, "Hey Trev, another idea I thought of how the season could end would be the next few episodes at Alexandria. It might follow the comics pretty well. And after their encounter with the scavengers or wolves, if they're the same, the sound from the gunfire attracts the herd of zombies, like in the comics, and Morgan. So if Morgan can hear the gunfire, he hears what's going on, that could be how he finds Alexandria. Maybe he's introduced as a big surprise at a bad time, like as the herd arrives, or maybe he can outrun it or something and warn them ahead of time." So, man, you just, totally, Cam, you absolutely 100%. That would be so awesome to see that. And I guess we'll have to see how it actually does play out, what they actually do show us. But I think that would be a perfect way for them to kind of end the season and maybe have a big finale. Because also, too, they could have had a slower episode in them where they didn't show us that much, because they could be planning some big things to happen at the end of the season, like what Cam just mentioned. That said, don't want to get my hopes up, because it could be kind of a small micro-intensive instead of bigger scale macro ending to the season. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of that. How you feel about the current Walking Dead episodes? What you think about the question about the filler and them adding things in to TV series? Let me know what you guys think about all of that and how you'd like to see this season wrap up. And I'll call it here. That's it for this one, guys. If you're new to the channel, you want to subscribe, feel free to click right there. You can go ahead and subscribe if you want to like the video, if you want to share it, if you've got a Facebook or whatever, you wouldn't mind sharing it with anyone on your Facebook account. I would appreciate it. And like it, favorite it. So for this one, guys, see you for the next one. As always, it's Trev saying peace.